We don't do the pledge of allegiance in this.
We don't do it for the committee.
That's what I thought. I didn't think we did.
We are now live, and our mics are hot. So make sure your words are not. We don't do it for the committee.
That's what I thought. I didn't think we did.
We are now live, and our mics are hot. So make sure your words are not. We don't do it for the committee.
That's what I thought. I didn't think we did.
We are now live, and our mic. All right. So if we want to get some advice from council on how this meeting shall proceed until such time a quorum is here, I believe the answer is it meets as a committee of the whole. And
That is correct. You can meet as a committee of the whole and receive information only. You will not be able to take a vote and act until you have a quorum.
so, Chair, if you want to, we can meet as a committee of the whole until such time as we have a quorum established.
Okay. I'd like to call the Board Administrative Performance Committee to order. We are meeting as a whole until we do have a quorum. So let's get started with public comments on matters not on the agenda. Do we have anyone who has a public comment this morning? Seeing none in the room. Do we have it? Oh, good. Here we go. Let's wait 1 minute here because now we have a quorum.
Parking and shooting.
Mr. Smith has arrived.
Delivering to school.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So is there anyone on Zoom or that has a public comment today? No? Okay. So let's continue on. Review to item action number 4.1, review of administrative performance. And I refer to Carl on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Your monthly reports are within your packet, and we continue to see amazing ridership growth over the previous year with the implementation of the Better Bus Network. Believe it or not, we have we're 2 weeks shy of actually, let's see, today we're 8 days shy of a full year of the Better Bus Network, and we are since its implementation, 25+% boarding increase in the Better Bus Network. We're still though not at where we were pre-COVID, and our lower fare structure still creates some challenges with us from a revenue standpoint. And that's why, you've heard MST say we have operating deficits. We'll continue to run operating deficits until such time that we, get back to full boardings, or if you're bored at some point in the future, tells us to reduce service levels or increase fares. That is not something that staff wants to suggest for the near term, because we're trying to build service back, and generally raising prices and reducing services isn't the way for its growth, not in any business or public service. We've seen improvements on the MST rides program. They have made really good steps in getting back to their drivers. They have hired a number of new drivers and have had them placed into service. So that is boding well on things like on-time performance for our MST rides customers. That is improving. The MST rides contractor is providing better customer service training for both their drivers and also for their dispatchers. You've had, on occasion, customers come before you to complain about our contractors, and I'd say, our contractors, they do a good job for the industry, per industry standards. Our standards tend to be a little higher here, right? They probably provide about 10 to 12% of our service, but easily 80% or more of our customer comments come in about that. So we're always very focused on them. We just graduated and put into service 3 new coach operators ourselves, went into service. We had a class of 5, 2 did not make it, again, because we have pretty high standards. But we had 3, and what was unusual, I can't think back, in my 20+ years history here, all 3 were female drivers. It's odd for us to have a single female in a class, or multiple females in a class, but to have 100% class of female drivers is, and it's something that we've been actually, through our diversity program and civil rights program, that it is an area where we have been consciously marketing to and trying to promote this as a job that's good for women. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks unless you have something else you'd like to.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
May I say something? I know that we established a quorum at the late attendance. We didn't take attendance. I know that Michael is joining remotely. We didn't take public comment at the beginning, and we didn't take.
No, we did take public comment. I didn't close public comment.
Okay, and then did we?
And we didn't approve the minutes. I was gonna go back to that because Ed came in a little bit late, so I thought I'd go back to that.
Okay, so I just wanted to follow you.
Thank you, Jeanette. All right, yes, question.
So I think it's just maybe my lack of knowledge, just from being on the board, not being on the board that long, but the transit app, I was wondering how that, do we run the transit app? Is that, because my daughter is a frequent rider.
Right.
And it just updated, and so she was telling me about kind of the cool new stuff, and then she's like, yeah, and they're asking me questions about my driver and my experience. And I'm wondering how that data feeds into maybe our performance.
Yeah, so on pay of your monthly report, we do have a performance report that is driven by the stats. I'm trying to find the page, but it is under performance, and it's the one with the stars. We are asking our riders to rate their ride, and you'll see those. If anyone finds the page before me, shout it out. They rate their ride, and they will, it shows up in this annual report somewhere. To follow up on answer your question, the transit app is a third-party app that we partner with, and we feed them our real-time bus arrival information, and then they convert it into a map, and all the detail shows the bus moving along the route, and then they ask questions, and we can actually contract with them. We've used them to conduct surveys of our passengers, and Lisa can provide, I believe the name of the company is Transit App, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're used by a lot of medium-sized transit operators who don't want to go and become app developers. Some transit operators want to be app developers. I don't know why, but we just stick to driving the buses, and then we'll let contractors do the stuff that's, that they need to do. Lisa is.
Yeah, I found the page, so page 17.
Page 17 of the report.
Right, it's under people, MST top 10 by transit app clicks for October. So what we've done here is provided the line, Jazz B, Jazz A, line 20, the number of rider clicks that people use to find their travel information, and then the rider rating. So what they can do is say, yeah, this is a great ride, 5 stars. This is a crappy ride, 1 star, whatever they want to do. And then we get that information, and then we're able to work with Transit App to provide them with questions as to what we want to hear feedback from our riders. So we're able to get that information in real time. It's for us getting that feedback earlier than the every 2-year transit in-person survey is really valuable to us. So we can make adjustments to timing or answer questions or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But overall, MST is rated very highly amongst our customers.
Yeah. No, great. She really enjoys it, and it'll tell her when she needs to, pull the stop, because they know where she's going. She helps her plan it out. So it's
Yeah, it'll even tell you to start walking faster.
Oh,
I
right,
had it.
yes,
It'll say when
yeah,
you're walking,
well,
you stop.
yes.
It checks
Yeah.
where you are and how fast you're moving compared to how fast the bus is moving. It'll
Yes.
tell you, hurry up.
Yes, yeah, because she's on the NPC campus, and so she needs to get down to that bus stop. So,
If I
yeah.
could add one more thing, the fun part about Transit app is that they provide a next level of service called Transit Royale. They're a Canadian company, so maybe the Royale comes from that aspect, but riders can either pay for it if the transit agency doesn't pay for it. We decided to pay for it for our customers, and it gives you just a higher level of information for that go. You can, it's kind of gamified in the sense that you can select your own avatar as to who you are. So it's kind of fun. We wanted to provide that to our customers.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's
Which
nice
is
to hear about
probably
it.
great for the students because they love all that
Oh, yeah.
technology,
Yeah.
which is great. Any other questions? Okay, I would like to go back. So let's take roll first. If you
Okay.
would, Jeanette.
Yes, so for City of Delray Oaks.
Here.
City of Gonzales,
Here.
City of Greenfield. Absent. City of Monterey,
Here.
City of Seaside,
Here.
and County of Monterey. County of Monterey, Luis Oliva.
Luis just mentioned he's gonna be here about 9:15.
Okay. Thank you, we do have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 3, which is the consent agenda. Approved minutes of the Board Administrative Performance Committee on October 9th, 2023. Do any of the, does the committee have any questions about the minutes at this time? Do I have a motion to approve?
Public comment, Madam Chair, please.
Oh, yeah. Is there anyone from the public that has any questions about the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And now do I,
There's someone online with their hand up.
oh, there is, okay.
Yes,
Apologize.
yes, is this public comment time?
It is, but it's actually for the minutes of last administrative board meeting. So public comment, if you have something to say about the bus, we might want to wait until the 10 o'clock meeting for public comment.
Public comments.
I see, because I did hear that you had a public comment at the beginning of this meeting, but I got hung up on. Not your fault. Sometimes my phone just disconnects, but it disconnected it even though I had my hand raised and I had to call in again. So I think I might have missed the opportunity for a public comment at the 9 o'clock. So you're saying now I have to wait to the 10 o'clock?
Go ahead. We've decided to allow you at this time to make a public comment.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Please identify-
Good morning, hello?
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Lorna Moffat, and good morning, members of the board. And I'm asking who on the board took MST to this meeting this morning. I guess not one of you, because you know how inconvenient and time-consuming it is. And it is your job to change that so you would rather take a bus than drive to your destinations. And MST just got $28.3 million to help make that happen under Measure X. Instead, the MST service is worse than ever, and the drop-off of customers is astounding. I know because I take MST on a regular basis to reduce my carbon footprint, and we should all do the same. And you should, so you can appreciate how you can improve the MST routes. And what I'm concerned about is I have saved 4 to 5 tons of CO2 and pollution in the last 25 years instead of driving my car. I don't know who is in charge of the route design, but obviously they don't take the bus, either that or they are a secret agent to the oil and gas executives. I think every one of you should be taking bus 24 to Carmel Valley to appreciate what that route entails. First, the plaza. First from the plaza, you take bus 5, a huge empty bus that carries about 5 to 10 people to Carmel and the Rancho. Then, if it's not late, you cross the street, rain or shine, to catch the 24, which has left because bus 5 was late, and you're forced to wait another hour in rain, cold, wind, or shine. I call it the hell ride. I return from Carmel Valley around 5 or 6. That bus drops you off at the Rancho, where you have to wait for bus 5, which is about 20 minutes in the rain, wind, or dark, and MST provides no lights with its $28 million raise. It's a deplorable situation. So you wait for the 5, and bus 24, meanwhile, across the street, is going back to the Carmel Valley for the last time, and all the return workers on bus 5 miss that bus and are stranded. A quick solution would be to bring back 24 to the plaza, and it goes straight on Highway 1 to the Rancho, picks up passengers there, and goes to the valley. You would have more passengers than you have now. In all my 25 years of taking MST, I've never seen such a drop-off of passenger load. Thank you.
We'll work on the, well, yeah.
We gotta change that gong, you know.
That's the last time we've
Wow.
heard that.
That's
So, our, planning staff has been in contact with Ms. Moffett and will continue to, note her concerns.
All right. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to move back to the consent agenda for approval of the minutes of October the 9th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I am going to abstain as I was not here at the last meeting. All right, moving on. Since we have gone to action item number 4.1, let's move on to action item number 4.2. Receive state legislative advocacy update. Michelle Overmeyer. Good morning, Michelle.
Morning, committee members. Michelle Overmeyer, Director of Planning and Innovation. One quick clarification on something Carl mentioned earlier, the Better Bus Network. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary yesterday. So it's December 10th last year.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Time flies.
It does. Okay, so today we have our lobbyists from Sacramento, Michael Pimentel and Matt Robinson. They're going to give you an update. If you want to follow along with the written staff report, it's on page 133 of your full agenda package, and they do have a presentation for you. I think we'll-
Good morning. It's good to see everybody in person. Usually you see Michael and I on a Zoom camera coming from Sacramento. My name is Matt Robinson. I'm with Shawgeter, Antwi, Schmelzer and Lang. That's Michael Pimentel, also with Shawgeter, Antwi, Schmelzer and Lang. Good to see everybody. Some familiar faces in the room. I have to say next slide, I guess.
Do.
And then it magically
it happens.
changes. There we go.
Magic.
So just some level setting as to where we're at right now in Sacramento. We're still on recess. They have their interim study recess between the 2-year session. They went out, I think, as you all recall, in the middle of September, and then they'll be back on January 3rd, as the slide notes. Right after they come back, the governor is going to put out his his prospective FY 24-25 budget on January 10th. I don't know if you saw the news, but late last week, the LAO put out their preliminary report on what they expect the state's fiscal picture to look like. And they put the number at a $68 billion budget problem. That spans several budget years. You'll recall we had massive surpluses, so we dedicated a lot of funding to one-time programs. Then we had sort of a budget problem last year, which was about $30 billion. And so we spent accordingly, and revenues didn't come in the November 16th filing as to where they thought they would be. So we're already kind of starting this year in a bad place, and then looking ahead to next year, the problem gets a bit worse, and that's where you get to this $68 billion number. How we're going to solve this, I think, is going to be a combination of things. I would note, though, the LAO in its report, this is important for you all to hear, does talk about potentially not spending money that has been programmed or allocated by the legislature in future years. In fact, they identify $2.2 billion in yet to be appropriated transportation funding. That's the AB 102, SB 125 funding that was awarded by the legislature. $2 billion of that was appropriated the year we're in, and then there's still about $3.2 billion left to appropriate in the future. And so that's one of the items they're going to be looking at as a way to potentially solve the budget problem. We've already been in touch with Cal SDA, and hopefully that's something we'll be able to maintain once the budget is put together for the next fiscal year. But something we're going to probably be advocating for as we head into next year. Other options are spend less on schools, pull down one-time spending on climate change funding that was appropriated, et cetera. There are several ways the legislature can solve this problem. So hopefully we're not in their sights, but you never know. The 2-year bill deadline is also approaching fairly rapidly when they come back. That's January 31st. There are a number of bills that are still sitting in their very first house, and they have to get into the second house before the 31st of January. A couple of things that we've been looking at are the Brown Act bills. Those are in your report. Those were still sitting in their first policy committees for several of the bills that we cared about. And so we'll be watching what happens to those pieces of legislation. And then finally, you see the last bullet, the last day for the legislature to introduce bills in the new session is February 16th. Next slide, please. There we go. Just a couple of points on legislative leadership. You all know we have a new speaker. I believe I saw Mr. Alejo at one of the events in Sacramento for Mr. Rivas. So really glad to have representation of MST in leadership in the assembly. But we also have a new pro tem that's coming in. Mike McGuire was elected by his colleagues in the Senate earlier this year, I should say. It's still 2023. And we got the announcement last week that he will officially take the gavel on February 5th. Next slide, please. We had anticipated Speaker Rivas making changes to committee chairs, and it took a few months to, I think, let the sort of the year we were in terms of the session finish. But now heading into 2024, the speaker has announced his key committee chair posts. We also saw a change in leadership occur, and that's the first bullet you see under the key changes. We now have a new majority leader in Assemblywoman Cecilia Aguiar Curry from Winters. But we note some of the committees of import for MST, the first being the Transportation Committee. The chair is coming back to Northern California in Solano County with Lauren Wilson taking that seat. We have the Appropriations Chair also moving from the south to the north in Miss Buffy Wicks. Some say Appropriations is the most important committee in either house. And so that chair will be from the Bay Area moving forward. We see the budget chair going from north to south with Mr. Gabriel taking the gavel in budget. Finally, Subcommittee 4 chair and Natural Resources you see on the screen. Subcommittee 4 used to be Subcommittee 3, and it got an extra program category in its title. It's now the Transportation, Resources, and Climate Change Committee. And it's moved to number 4. So not super important, but the chair stays the same. And Mr. Bennett is somebody that we worked with quite a bit this year on getting that transportation funding appropriated. And then finally, we're just waiting for the speaker and the committee chairs to fill out the full roster of those committees and what they may look like for work in 2024. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Pimentel, who's going to run you through where we're at with the funding that was appropriated, as I mentioned, in 2023. And I think what has kind of become known as the SB 125 process. Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, and board members. Good to be with you this morning. As Matt has highlighted, the state budget did provide new resources for public transit agencies, monies that can be used for capital and operations. It was $5.1 billion. From a statewide perspective, here in Monterey County, you all will be receiving $52.5 million over a 4-year time horizon. Now, in order to access those dollars, there are new accountability and reporting requirements that are imposed on the regional transportation planning agencies in York County, of course, TAMC, that would require that those RTPAs work with their transit agencies to really detail how they're planning to use those dollars and to submit a series of financial plans. There are 3 financial plans required in total. Short-term financial plan due at the end of this year. long-term financial plan due in 2 years, and then there's an intermediate and really kind of update financial plan that we required at the end of next year. Now, submitting those plans is a precondition for receiving the dollars from the state. As Matt had noted, there's this new wrinkle that's been introduced in that the state, in facing that $68 billion funding shortfall, will potentially be looking at making some changes to funding allocations that could ultimately impact the $52.5 million that the region has already been committed. Now, in addition to providing that structure for accountability and reporting, SB 125, and I should say the Budget Act as a whole, also provides other forms of relief to California transit agencies. It does extend statutory relief that went into place during the height of the pandemic that largely waived financial penalties for transit agencies and their underperformance in meeting things like fare box recovery requirements, STA efficiency criteria requirements, all with an eye toward the reality that while transit is beginning to recover, most agencies in the state have not yet reached their pre-pandemic levels. Hence, some additional relief is warranted, and that relief has been extended to fiscal year 25-26. Now, importantly, in addition to the accountability and reporting requirements, the state has a strong interest in making sure that we are transforming our transportation network. Here we see the creation of the Transit Transformation Task Force. And on the next slide, you'll see a bit more of what that task force is going to be charged with completing. And so we can move to the next slide. You'll see that CalSTA is required by the end of the year to establish and convene this Transit Transformation Task Force. Announcement went out just this past Friday. I'll speak more to that in just a moment. And it requires that this task force work to develop a series of recommendations to grow transit ridership, improve the transit experience, all that is driving toward reaching operational and financial sustainability for the agencies and preventing them from having to go back to the state and asking for additional resources in years ahead. All this driving toward the submittal of a report of recommendations to the legislature on or before October 31st, 2025. Among the things that that report will look at and offer recommendations on is reforming the Transportation Development Act. Some of the statutory relief measures that I had alluded to earlier are attempting to address some of the challenges with the TD ads that exist today. This is about more holistic reform. And so as we click to the next slide, we just have a brief update here. And that is just this past Friday, your CEO, Carl Sidoric, was appointed formally to this task force of 25 members. And that reflects MST's leadership within these budget conversations over this past year, but then also to your leadership on a variety of fronts, including transition to open loop fare payment systems, advancements of COAs, and really the progressive thinking that this agency has brought to your region and to the state as a whole. And so Carl will be representing a broader caucus of interests, including representatives for the Central Coast agencies, as well as the medium-sized agencies in the state. They're going to convene as a task force for the first time on Tuesday, December 19th, as really a matter of stage setting and identifying the charter for this task force. And then they'll be meeting on a every other month cadence so that they can produce that report by, again, October 2025. And so that concludes our presentation today. I do want to stop and, of course, take any questions from the members here today.
Is there anyone from the public that has questions? Seeing none in the room. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing none?
I'd just like to, if I could make a comment
Yes.
with regard to the SB 125 funds. Really want to thank Michael and Matt for being there statewide. They were some unpleasant conversations, and Michael was in the hot seat, explaining why transit was going to take priority over housing, over mental health, over water, over so many issues that the state has to deal with, and to bring $52 million to Monterey County that was ultimately elected by TAMC used to help MST offset some of its operating deficits as part of the deal to get MST fully funded with our Measure X, and then to start real start work on priority projects and future rail programs. Michelle Overmeyer, who attended 22 separate meetings and provided testimony to the Assembly and Senate, Just also want to thank her for her efforts in helping us secure that funding.
Great, thank you. Anyone from the committee have a question? Or anyone? Thank you very much for the update.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you for coming in today.
Appreciate it.
All right. Moving on. 4.3, receive federal legislative update.
We have visiting with us today from Washington DC, via Manassas, Virginia, to our very own Don Gilchrist, who's been our advocate in DC for some time now. For some time, yeah. More years than I want to admit to, but we've had a very great relationship.
Yes.
In this past year, Don's helped us get through our capital investment grant program. Helped with Congressman Panetta, helping us move forward our veterans eligibility discount. We ran into some issues with getting some sign off from the Veterans Administration, and we were able to short circuit that with the help of Don. And he's just a great person to be able to call on to get help when it's needed. So, Don.
Nice to see you in person.
Thank you. Very nice to be here, to see you all. Don Gilchrist, President of Thomas Walters and Associates, Chair, members of the committee. Appreciate the chance to talk to you again about your federal program. If we could advance to the next slide, please. Turns out this is probably the final week of 2023 for Congress. More than one member of Congress has said good riddance. It has certainly been a chaotic year with lots of disruptions, with debt limit crisis in May. We've had 2 shutdown crises so far, and a leadership crisis in the House where a speaker was ousted, which was really something I've never seen before. Throughout the year, there's just been this big impasse in the funding process as the House and the Senate have taken very different approaches on the appropriations bills. The House Republicans are trying to implement significant funding reductions. And as a result, things are really slowed down and stuck. And there have been no appropriations bills enacted into law, even though the new fiscal year started on October 1. And we are operating under short-term funding through a continuing resolution that will run through the January-February timeframe. So your funding priorities have been a huge part of our lobbying so far this year and will continue to be so for the next couple of months. Despite all of this dysfunction, there's a very bright spot in that the bipartisan infrastructure law that was signed into law in 2021 is on the books. We're now moving into the 3rd of the 5 years of that bill. So there's lots of funding that has been secured and is still available to MST through transit formula programs and through grant application programs. So that is, despite their best intentions, that is still the case, and there's still hope. If we could advance to the next slide, please. Just want to take a closer look at appropriations. And of course, we're talking about the transportation appropriations bill. The House and the Senate have both passed this bill, but they're very, very different approaches. And so this is not going to be finalized until late January at the earliest. The House Republican approach has been to propose steep reductions in transportation grant programs. We are opposing this on behalf of MST, and your local delegation has been strongly opposing it as well. They've been great to work with. For MST, the reductions in the capital investment grants program is especially troubling because that's the program that supports the SURF, busway, and BRT project. And President Biden proposed $14 million in his FY24 budget proposal earlier in the year. And at that time, he also proposed to reallocate $8.1 million of FY23 money to the project. So things are finally falling into place. This is sort of the culmination of years of advocacy by Carl Sidorik and his staff and working through FTA's process. We want to see that come to a successful conclusion. We don't want these spending reductions in the capital investment grant program to be implemented in case that slows us down or endangers the project. The transportation appropriations bill does not touch your transit formula funds. Those were secured in the infrastructure law, and you will continue to receive those regardless of whether the House proposal or the Senate proposal is signed into law. And just to note that Congress continues to support project earmarking. The support in the House and the Senate is strong for this process. MST was not successful this year, but we're already gearing up to participate in the FY25 process, which will start probably February, March, April next year. Next slide, please. Just wanted to show you a chart that illustrates the impact of the proposed House spending reductions. This chart shows the House bill compared to what was enacted last year and what the Senate is proposing. And if you go down towards the bottom to FTA capital investment grants, you can see there's a huge potential impact there where the House is proposing to reduce this program by over $2 billion. And various other competitive grant programs are affected as well, which we do care about, but we really care about CIG. And we also care about the bus and bus facilities program because we're always looking to add money to that to increase your opportunities. If we could go to the next slide. This one shows the same information in a slightly different way.
Could you go back one, Scott? You went ahead
Missed
too.
one.
There we go.
And what this does is combines the infrastructure funding, infrastructure law funding with the annual appropriations funding. These are the two sources for the funding. And you can see if you look at the capital investment grants program, even under the House proposal, there will continue to be a substantial amount of money for that program because they do not propose to touch the funding that was included in the infrastructure law. However, we want to see the Senate version enacted because they add several $1 billion on top of that, which is very significant for this competitive process. If we could go to the next slide, please. Just to look forward a little bit to next year, we're going to have to continue to focus on finishing up FY24. And that means going after the funding for SURF, for hopefully increasing bus and bus facilities opportunities through the appropriations process. But then we're going to have to quickly pivot to FY25. I think the president's budget will be late. We'll see that in March or April. And so we're going to have our hands full getting things done. But your program for next year will have a lot of continuity. Your goals and objectives are very, very similar. They're not changing. The lay of the land will not change that much. So that means we'll be working again to make sure that nothing happens to the infrastructure law funding. MST will continue to pursue grant opportunities through competitive grants at FTA and other agencies. As the appropriation process unfolds, we'll be seeking to add money to these programs. And then, as I said before, we'll be seeking any opportunities to participate in the earmarking process for FY25. And we've already begun discussing possibilities with Representative Panetta and Representative Lofgren. So looking forward to next year. If we could advance the slide one more, I'll look forward to continuing to work with you to implement the federal platform that you are going to adopt a little bit later today. And I'll pause here in case you have any questions regarding your federal program.
Are there any questions from the committee?
Just a quick question. There was a big announcement made by the Biden administration just regarding high-speed rail. I think you had mentioned LA to Las Vegas. Was that on top of what we listed here?
The rail funding that you mentioned is because of the infrastructure law, and it's already been enacted into law, and it's relevant to the appropriations process for this year because House Republicans are proposing to significantly reduce that funding, which would affect future rounds of competition. Even if they were able to do that, most likely the billions of dollars from the infrastructure law would remain on the book. So far, they have not sought to repeal that funding or rescind that funding, but it actually is part of their rationale for underfunding these programs in the annual appropriations process. They basically point at that funding and say, there you go, you've been taken care of. We're going to cut you this year. So it's a net reduction because they are definitely underfunding these in their proposed appropriations legislation.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in. Appreciate the information. All right, moving forward. 4.4 procurement policy update in accordance with SB 304, effective January 1st, 2024. Lisa Reinheimer.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. On the regular board's agenda under consent 3-7 is a recommendation to approve an update to MST's procurement policy in accordance with SB 304, which will be effective January 1st of this year. It essentially changes MST's purchasing thresholds for micro purchases, small purchases, and large purchases. We're currently at essentially $2,500, $100,000. And then for larger purposes, anything over that is a formal request for proposals, request for qualifications, invitation for bids. And those change as of January 1st to $5,000, $150,000, or $150,000 and over for the different thresholds. That gives us more flexibility, and why we were working with Senator Laird on this change. It gives us more flexibility in terms of those smaller purchases, as well as get us closer to inflationary adjustments over time. So that those thresholds are included in the procurement policy, as well as we added a section on protest procedures. You saw a protest last month of an invitation for bids. Those are codified in the new procurement policy for 2024. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. And actually, I should just note that with the new procurement policy, your CEO's threshold then would jump to 150. All those authorizations under that amount would come to the board in accordance with what we're already doing. 50,000 to 150,000 all come to the board as a report in the financial statements.
All right, thank you. Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa.
So Lisa, are you seeking action or recommendation from
At
this
this
committee to
point?
the full board? Or are they just receiving an
Hold on a
update?
second.
I think it's just.
It was just an update.
Okay,
You do what you want to do, but it was just an update.
okay, but it will be on the full board agenda for a vote.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I think that ends everything for us at this time. I'd like to make a motion to close. Somebody? Or we're just,
We just close.
just close it.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's different. I mean, I do it different in other places. So I don't know.
There you go.
Thank you.